I appreciate the chance to speak with you all tonight about hopefully some topics around communication that will help you think differently about how you approach the job search or interacting with coworkers or making new connections, thinking outside the box a little bit about how we engage with people and how to live by that golden rule, right? Of treating people the way we want to be treated, but how we can live that out in our professional lives as adults. We talk about it as children, we learn those lessons growing up, and those lessons come back around to us in all kinds of ways. And I'm going to show you some real life examples of how to lead with your best foot forward and make a meaningful impact on everybody that you engage with. And I hope that's something that, in very practical ways, I hope you'll be able to take these lessons and apply them in your lives as soon as tonight. And just to fill in a little bit, because the bio, I wanted to be clear. When I worked on TV, I worked for Channel 3 here in town. So I know we're all local. I'm in Virginia Beach. So I was on Channel 3. It's been like over 10 years since I was on the air. But I was on the local news covering everything local news covers, the good, the bad, the ugly. We all know what local news looks like. Too often it's too negative, to be honest with you. And that's one reason why I hopped out of it. I just didn't feel like the work I was supposed to do, right? We all believe we have a calling, right? And that work did not feel like the work that I was meant to do. But what I did do is I never lost the lesson. I'm going to ask you to do a lot of hand raising with me since our mics are off, but I'd love for you to find that hand reaction things. I want to ask you throughout the session if you're agreeing with me. I took a lot of great skills from that job and I use them in the work I do now. And raise your hand if you've ever taken a skill from one job and applied it in the next job. You can have your real hands or your Zoom hands. Do a lot of hand raising in this session. I really want you to stay with me. So I left that role because I didn't feel like I was doing the work I was meant to do. But skills like talking to strangers and asking them questions, telling stories of my own successes, learning to use details like numbers to emphasize my achievements. We're going to go through those topics tonight. And I'm going to show you how what I learned as a journalist, I now share with people to help them to open that next big door for whatever they want to do. The work I'm doing today, as Ali said, my company is called Rubin. And what we do is we provide curriculum, lesson plans to middle schools, high schools, and colleges around the country to help young people learn to communicate for internships and jobs and college scholarships and whatever else they're trying to pursue. But these lessons are relevant for people of any age. And so I'm happy to step out of the classroom, so to speak, and share these ideas with you. But what I'm doing and trying to live out what I think I'm supposed to do is to share these communication lessons with as many people as possible. And that now takes the form of training educators to teach the same skills to their students. So in that way, we can spread these ideas as far as we can. And my company, we have working with school systems and universities in 35 states, including Hawaii and Alaska, teaching students as young as 6th grade some of the lessons we're going to learn tonight. And that's very meaningful to me because these are people that I will probably never meet. But if I could make an impact on them in some small way and change how they think about that next task they're about to do, that next opportunity, that's what it is for me. And I hope that we all can find what makes us whole, gives us that passion in our own lives. And hopefully the lessons tonight can help you get there just a little bit faster. So I am going to do a little bit of screen sharing, not too much, but I have a few different sort of slides with the really web pages with some examples. Before we get into that, I would love to know in the chat, could you each go to the chat and if you're working, tell me where you work or if you had a job, where you did work, or if you're retired, what you did. Tell me in the chat. I want to see the variety of jobs that are represented tonight. So I want to see that federal government. It's helpful to see the diversity of occupations so I can make sure I'm speaking to your experiences as we go along. So keep it coming. Danya said federal government. What else we got? nonprofit, service industry, marketing director for, there you go, the Brock Cancer Center, mammography technologist. Ooh, that's a strong job title right there. What else? Anybody else? Feel free to share. They are great careers. Active duty, thank you for your service. So that's great. Keep it coming. So what we're going to talk about tonight are a few key topics that we're going to blend, as the title of the session suggested. We're going to blend a mix of working on your career, and if or like looking for work, and if you're in the job, learning how to excel in that job. Kind of a little bit of a mix so we can have a good balance. Okay, human services, thank you. So let me share my screen. And by the way, if any of you have been around this region for a while and you're looking at my last name, you may recognize my father. His name is Joel Rubin. He was on the news for a long time. He's been a face around town for so and such years, you know. And so if you're wondering if there's that name sounded familiar, the last name, I am his son, and I worked with him for many years at in our PR firm, a public relations agency. And now I'm doing my own thing with my own educational company. So let me turn this on. I'm gonna do a quick share. Okay, so what I'm showing you tonight, what we're gonna be working from is the online platform we provide to schools. And again, I don't want you to think what I'm sharing with you is just for kids. It's not. It's really written, truth be told, when I started building it, it was really designed for just professionals. And then I found a real opportunity to deliver this to schools. But the material is written for all ages. So I don't think I'm like treating you like a seventh grader, because I'm not. But these lessons are universal. And I think they would hold true throughout our lives. But the sooner we learn them, I think the better off that we're going to be. So the first thing that I want to cover is, where to go? Here it is. Okay. I want to talk about, in fact, before I share, let me just come back and set it up, and then I'll share again. So how many of you have ever had to send an email to try and get a job or an interview or some kind of opportunity, and you had to send a message asking if the employer would talk to you? Has anybody ever done that before? Any Zoom hands for that? Ever had to send a message to say, would you meet with me? Can I interview? Right? It's just a part of life. We have to ask people, and even if it's over the phone or it's you walk in the office, right? Whatever the circumstance, we have to ask someone to give us their time, to meet with us, to help us, to interview us, to pick us, whatever it is. We're constantly reaching out, hoping that person will pick up the phone or respond to that message. And what we are sort of maybe instinctually, we know we need to tell them our name, maybe, you know, our background a little bit, where we live, what we've done. But when we do that, what are we doing? When we're talking about our name and who we are and what we do, what are we focusing on? Can someone tell me in the chat, what are we focusing on when we do all those things? I'm gonna keep giving you little pop quizzes. You got it. It's, you know, 7 o'clock. It's a beautiful night. I want to sit where Nicole's sitting. She's on a nice porch somewhere. I want to be outside. So self-branding. And what do we do? We're talking about 2 letters, M-E. We're talking about who? Me. We're talking about ourselves. We're saying, this is what I'm all about. This is who I am. I'm great. I've done this. I've done that. Choose me. Talk to me, right? It's all about us. Who are we forgetting in that moment? Who are we not thinking about in that moment? Who has a thought? Them. That's right, TC. Now, how do we show the love to the other person? What does that mean? Or to that company? Either way, the person or the company. I want to show you a strategy that I hope you'll use, because it will help you get every email you send like this, or every phone call, every conversation responded to much faster, because we're treating people the way that we want to be treated. This is how that golden rule comes in, and something as, you know, one-off and random as an email or a conversation asking for an opportunity. Let me show you an example of an email where you're just, look, this is in the case of even like the company doesn't even have a job posted. You want to work there, and you're like, I got to make them notice me. I have to make them notice me and talk to me. How do I do that? They don't know me yet. They don't care about me. They're busy. I just got to get my foot in that door. They got to meet me. So what do? Look right here. In the message, it says, I checked out the name of your company's website, and I respect the work you do. For instance, the 10K walk to support research on brain cancer and the capital campaign to aid the river cleanup. Those projects were well orchestrated, and it's clear your team knows how to deliver results. So what did I do in that moment? What did I just do? Am I talking about myself in that sentence? Who am I talking about? What am I talking about? The other person, the company, right? But notice what I did. Did I write a sentence that said, your company is amazing and I want to work there? Is that all I said? Or did I get specific? Because if I said to somebody, your company's amazing, what if they said to me, well, why do you think that? And if I didn't do any homework, they would have caught me in a lie. Because if you say the same thing to everybody, we all know what's real and what's fake, right? You know when someone's being authentic, and there's a sermon right there, TC. We know when someone's being authentic, and we know when they're being fake. And if you're going to send the same sentence around all over town saying, your company's incredible, hire me, you can smell that out from a mile away. They're not making the message personal to the recipient. Now, let's talk about this. And I need to have one more screen open. How do we find out this kind of information? How would I know about the 10K walk to support research on brain cancer that the company did? How would I know? Where would I go to learn about that type of project? And someone put in the chat, I'm going to take you to a website, a good example that I like to lean on. Oh, hold on. Get to the Centera website. So I saw somebody's at the Brock Center, right? Or Brock Cancer. So here you go. Now, Google, where else could you go to learn about projects? Company website, correct. Now, here's the next question. On the website, what page would you look on to find a project they did? Take a guess in the chat. What page? And I'll show you one. Now, it's a good guess. The About Us is a good guess, but the truth is, a company might write the About Us page in 1997 and not touch it again. So where's the newest stuff? Where are the projects? I'm going to give you a secret that's, as I say, it's hidden in plain sight. Nobody ever thinks to do this, but I want you to start from this day on. Let's go to the bottom here. I'm looking for a page called like News or Newsroom. Does anybody see Newsroom on this page somewhere? Over here, right? Oop, what? Community involvement also. Let's go to the Newsroom. Let's see what we find. What's going on in the Newsroom? Oop, I see some things. Pretty recent, right? SNVMC. I don't even know what that stands for, but I could look it up. Donates more than $375,000 to area programs. Centera tackles behavioral health crisis. What are we doing here? I would read the article and I would say in my email, I'm impressed that the hospital has taken such a priority for behavioral health, right? And by doing that, it shows what? That I actually did my homework. But how long would it take me to do this? Can someone tell me how many minutes would it take to visit the website, go to their news page, and read a story or a part, enough of it to go back to the email and mention it? 5 minutes, maybe not even that long, like 5 minutes, right? But those 5 minutes could change your entire career, because the truth is that if you send an email that is kind of like the same exact thing to everybody, the odds of it being answered are very slim. People are busy. You didn't make it personal. No hard feelings. They just don't care. But if you add that extra detail showing that you care about them before you could expect them to care about you, then that message might get answered. It might lead to a conversation. It might lead to a job. It could be the last place you work the rest of your life. But if you send a message that is just like, my name is so-and-so, and I've done this, and I've done that, will you meet with me? That door may stay shut. Think about it if you were on the other side and someone sent a message and they mentioned something about you or your company because they did their homework. How would it feel to you? How would you feel if somebody took the time to get to know you on that level? Would you feel good? Of course you'd feel good. You would feel valued. You would feel important. right? And don't we want people to feel that way as much as possible? Just like we like to feel that way, right? So it goes both ways. We got to give and then we get. We don't always get. We might give and not get. And that's life too, but we always give first. How many of you with a show of hands think they could do what I just did with you? Before you have to reach out to anybody for anything, TC can do it. I also would encourage you, look up, if it's a person, you're about to meet with them for coffee, for mentorship, for advice, whatever, look them up on LinkedIn, look them up online, find something. You could say anything about the person that's been publicly available, anything, and they'll think you're the greatest person they ever met. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's about changing how we think about how we talk to people, because we're so caught up today in talking about ourselves. We are a very egotistical culture. Social media hasn't helped. There's another sermon. I'm throwing out sermons here. Because we're just conditioned to say, I'm the show. I am the show. I'm the main event. And we forget that when we give other people the spotlight and the time and attention, that is what gets things moving. So I want to start with that, because I think it's such an important lesson in business communication, one, and just life in general. And it's not taught in schools, although I'm working on that, because these are the skills that we need to learn at a young age to think about other people before we think about ourselves. And I know that probably comes second nature to many of you, caring for family members, caring for your community, but it works the same way with careers. So I hope you'll hold on to that and just think about the next time you're about to ask somebody for help, say, oh, hold on. Let me do a little homework first. A little goes a long way. All right, with that, let me jump back around here. All right, what I want to do now, where'd it go? Here it is. All right, a couple more little career development strategies for looking for jobs or growing within your company. And then we're going to do like a networking lesson as well. Tell me, Allie, tell me what time we have to cut. I want to make sure I stay on your time.
Sure. So, feel free to keep talking until about 7:45 or so we can make sure if there's any questions, we address them.
Perfect. I'll be done by then for sure. So how many people have a resume? Hands up if you got a resume, or it's been a little while. Okay, so let's talk about that resume. I told you I'm taking everything out of local news, out of journalism. What works in journalism works in all of our lives. So I want to show you a sample resume of some like work experience. All right. And I'm going to read it to you, and I want you to tell me what stands out. This person is a hostess at a restaurant. Works as a hostess at a popular Mexican restaurant in Columbus that sees more than 300 customers on average each day. Make sure all 14 servers receive equal customers in their table sections of the restaurant. Now, what stands out to you in those 2 bullet points? What jumps out to you? Tell me in the chat. What jumps out? What are you looking at? What catches your eye? Oh, that's right, Nicole. The numbers, right? Would you be surprised to know that 99% of resumes don't contain numbers or not enough about our experiences? We just talked about giving other people the love. Now it's time to give ourselves the love. We have to tell people exactly what we have accomplished in our lives. Now, do you think the sentence would have been as interesting if it says, hosts at a popular Mexican restaurant that sees a lot of people each day, or that's very popular? Would that have been as meaningful to you as 300 customers a day? Saying a lot of people or 300? Which one's better? Right? And how many people could make a resume that says, I'm a hostess and we're very busy? How many could say, I'm a hostess and we have 300 people a day? Right? You start to go from sounding like everybody to sounding like yourself. And there's so much noise out there. And the problem is we all go on Google and we grab the same resume templates and we all sound the same. And the truth is that you all have experiences that no one else has. You've accomplished things no one else can say. So what I want you to do is start to think about your own experiences. Okay. And maybe let's try this in the chat. For example, the one that sticks out is the mammography technologist. Okay. I'm going to call you out. All right. Just hang with me in the chat. How many patients do you see in a week? Can you tell me, can you come up with that number, just estimated? How many do you see in a week? How many patients do you see in an average week? I'll give you a second to think about it and write it. And then I want you to think, how many do you see in a month? Let's think about the numbers we all have in our lives. There are numbers everywhere. We're all working hard and doing things, and we are gathering numbers. I'm going to go back to some of the other occupations I'm trying to remember. Like the person who was in the military, do you oversee person who was active duty? Do you oversee a team? Let's think about questions we can ask ourselves. If you manage a team, what question might you ask to put the number on the page? Who has an idea? What question, if you say, I'm a manager of a team, what question would you ask yourself to get that number up there? And someone put a question in the chat. What do you think you'd ask yourself? You say you manage a large team. What's the question you would say next to yourself? Throw it in the chat for me. What question would help us to get that number? Thank you, TC. How many people, right? Or you say, well, I manage a large budget. So what's that next question? How much money do you manage? We held an event. A lot of people came. What's that next question? How many people came, right? So you can look at numbers as like one-time events or numbers over a period of time, right? You could say, thank you, Flora. You could say, you know, in an average week, this hostess seats 1,200 people. That sounds pretty impressive, right? You'd want to hire somebody who manages to deal with 1,200 people in a work week, but all she was going to tell you is that she was a hostess, right? You take all the flavor, all the life out of the resume, because you say you're a hostess at a restaurant. All right, people are like, okay, great, you're a hostess. You say, I helped seat 1,200 people. It's like, whoa, hold on a second. This person has some serious skills. You could take those skills and you could be a project manager. You could do all kinds of things with that, right? But we leave it off the table. We don't tell people the details that make us interesting. And I promise you, when I showed you these bullet points, I bet you saw those numbers before you saw the words. Because words, they just come and go, but numbers stick. And who knows this expression? Numbers don't lie. They do not lie. And we have them, but unfortunately, we're not taught to share them. We're taught to just use very generic descriptions of what we do in our jobs. And if you can bring those numbers in, you bring it to life and you become unique. And you become that resume that the employer's like, well, I want to call them. Versus the one they're like, seen it. And they're like, ooh, that's interesting. And again, it's not complicated. I am not a complicated guy, and I'm never the smartest guy in the room, but I think simple. And I think what's going to make the biggest impact. And so far we've learned it's doing your research on people, showing you care, and it's showing your numbers. Now, let's get to one other career topic. The cover letter. Who's written a cover letter before? Oh, the old cover letter. Oh, I hate writing those. What a waste of time. Nobody reads it. Why are they making me do it? Isn't my resume enough? Well, without numbers, it's not, as we just learned. But the cover letter is an incredible opportunity to tell people not just that you're a great person and you're driven and you're determined, but to give an example of a time in your life or at a previous job where you faced a challenge and you could have given up, but you stuck with it. You rose to the occasion. Now, let me ask you, if you're watching the local news or anything on TV and you don't like what you're watching, what are you going to do next? Go to the chat. You see something on TV, it's not interesting to you. What are you going to do? And how long do you wait in your brain before you switch that channel? How much time do you give it? You're just flipping around. How much time? I mean, what do you think? 5 seconds? That's right. 5 seconds, 6 seconds. That's it. Or you're gone. Now you think the employer, or let's think about it in the business context too. Somebody's flipping through proposals, and if you don't get them in 5 seconds, they're on to the next one, right? You got 5 seconds to shine, or it's over. Doesn't matter what else you wrote on that page. If they don't like that first line, they're gone. And that's just the hard truth of it. So what are we going to do with those 5 seconds? Well, I'll tell you, the classic line of every cover letter, every job application in America is this: my name is so-and-so, and I'm applying for the blank position at the blank company. That's how every cover letter starts. Well, if every cover letter starts the same way, how are you going to get out of this change in the channel situation? You got to shake it up. You have to lead that story, that cover letter, with a story that showcases who you are. Let me show you an example. And Ali, I could share these with the group afterwards. I can put it like in a Google Doc or something. We can talk about that, so people can look back at these things. Look at this first line. Jim Robisky said no to me so many times I lost count. Now that's the first line. Are you interested? And they're looking at this like, is this a cover letter? What am I reading? The employer's like, well, hold on, what is this? But they're still reading. As a sales rep for a mid-sized IT firm, I tried time and again to convince Robisky, the VP of technology for a large hospital system, he needed to upgrade all of his servers and begin to move much of the hospital's data onto the cloud. Phone calls, handwritten notes, drop-in visits, nothing seemed to work. Then I took a different approach. I knew Robisky typically attends a monthly networking event at the Chamber of Commerce. I also expected another client of ours who has fully embraced the cloud to be at the event too. When I saw both people in the room, a coworker and I introduced the two, I mentioned the benefits of cloud computing and let my client sing its praises. A few moments later, Robisky turned to me and said, call my office on Monday. I think I'm ready to explore the cloud a bit more. 6 months later, the hospital system remains our biggest client. My name is Stephen Hirsch. I want to be your next sales executive. Now, let me ask you some questions in the chat. Tell me some adjectives. Tell me some words that describe this person through that story. What types of qualities did they show you? Give me a word that comes to mind when you heard that story. Just give me one. What do they demonstrate to you? What kind of adjectives? Dedicated. What else? Try to get one or two more. What do they feel like to you? I would say things like, creative, problem solver, knowledgeable. Thank you. Now, most cover letters have a sentence that says, I'm dedicated, I'm knowledgeable, I'm hardworking, I'm driven, right? Did you hear any of those words in that story? But you felt those words, right? They came through in the story. Now, how many people could write a sentence in a cover letter or even in a business pitch for their business that says, we are dedicated, driven, passionate, hardworking, dependable? How many people could write that sentence? Like the whole world? The entire English-speaking world? Yes. How many could tell this exact story? How many people on earth could tell this story? The answer, it's not a trick question. I'll put it in the chat. One person could do this. One person could share this story. And when the employer's done reading it, they're like, oh my goodness, get this person in for an interview before someone else hires. And the truth is, we all have stories. We all have experiences. We've all faced setbacks, especially during COVID. And I would encourage you to think about what's an example from your professional history, as recent as possible, not something from 20 years ago, something that happened the last 6, 12 months. Any little challenge, a challenge at work, challenging situation, filling in for a sick coworker, helping out with family who are going through challenges, any moment in your life, to show that when the chips are down, you are not going to give up. You're going to dig in. Now, I want to show you one more thing. Where do we learn the person's name? This is very important. We talk about access to opportunity for all. Where is their name? Someone tell me, where did you hear me say the name at the end? It's actually kind of a little bit in the middle. There's a little part, but it's not, we don't start with our name. Now, why? Every cover letter on earth, the first few words are my name is such and such, and I'm applying. Why do we do that? Because we want the employer to judge us on what's inside, not our name, not our gender, not our age, not our race. Judge us on what's inside. Judge us on who we are as a person. Nothing out here. The world is too quick to judge us on how we look and who they think we are because of their own bias. We all have bias. But when you tell a story of your work ethic, that's all that matters. And by the time they know your name, they already want to meet you because you led with your story. And that's what makes it real to them. Otherwise, you're just another person applying for a job. When you add a story to it, everything changes. And you become a human being that is capable of handling whatever challenge might be thrown your way in that new job. So I want you to remember this is so important because too many people get screened out of opportunities simply because of what the employer thinks they are. And that's not fair, but that's how it goes. But we can overcome that by leading with who we are. You know, when we talked in this sort of preview conversation about this, we were talking about, you know, we can believe that we are destined for great things, but belief is not enough. We have to then put it in motion and sort of fulfill that destiny. And by doing these types of tasks, we are taking control of where we want to be. We know we're destined for something great, but it doesn't just happen. We got to put in the steps, the effort, the actions. And by telling your story to someone who otherwise would have ignored you is one of those concrete actions. And I can't stress it enough how powerful this is. And I've seen this work for people of all ages. I have a example of a woman who is 65, returning to the workforce, applied dozens of places. Nobody would talk to her. She told a story of a time she solved a challenge at her previous job. She had calls the next day after striking out for months because of her age, right? Because we want to put everybody in a box. But once they know what kind of a great employee you'd be, they can't wait to call you, right? So it's human nature. And we're just conditioned to push people away unless they give us a good reason. How many of you think you're capable of telling a story of a time you overcame a challenge in a previous role or in your job? How many could do that? And I really think, TC, maybe when the community is together the next time around, maybe you have a little dialogue about helping people bring their stories out and have a little session about that, because it's hard to know, well, is this a good one? You know, what does the group think of that? And is that appropriate? Is that the best one? You know, but really think hard about any little time where that got tough and what'd you do? But it's important when you do that, that you think about the process. There's 3 steps here. There's the problem in the story, how you solve the problem, and the successful outcome. And this part is the most critical. What steps did you take to solve the problem? You can't say, well, this thing was a problem and I fixed it. Because where you're really being judged is that middle part. What did you do to fix it? Well, I did step 1, step 2, and step 3, and then I fixed it. Because they want to know, can you solve a problem? If they want to hire your business, if you want to get a promotion, did you solve a problem? And what steps did you take to get it done? So, you know, I was going to do one last thing, but I got in my own way. So I think that's probably enough to leave it with, and we can open up to questions. And if not, I can, you know, mention one last thing. But I hope that this gives you some new ideas and the confidence to go after whatever you want to go after. what I love about these topics is it's not reserved for the smartest people or the most privileged people. The people who, as the expression goes, are, born on second base, born on third base. They have all of life's advantages. Well, screw that. Any of us can do anything if we know how to talk to people with respect and tell people what we've accomplished. And if we learn how to do both of those things, we can go get anything we want. And we can talk to anybody we want. We can open any door we want. They're not closed off to us because of this or because of that, because I'm unlucky or they don't want to talk to me or it's whatever. We can make excuses all day. But if we learn how to use our words effectively, anything is right in front of us. And so I hope that gives you some, not just inspiration, but some practical skill. Inspiration gets you only so far. I don't want to leave you with some rah-rah speech and you're like, well, how do I do it? I wanted to give you some concrete lessons and ideas that you could implement to make things happen. So it's 7:45. I'm going to stop for a second. I'll throw it to Ali or TC, whoever. If there are questions, I'll take them, or I can riff on anything all night.
Danny, I'm happy with my job and career, but by God, I want to go apply for the CEO of Apple. Tim Cook, here I come. You got me fired up, man.
You can do it. Well, maybe shoot a little lower than CEO of Apple, but he's not going anywhere. Right. But I think it's so powerful, especially we work with a lot of schools, a lot of Title I schools, inner city, Atlanta, Charlotte. I want this message to stick. And I think we teach it at young ages and it could change a life and give people opportunity that they were certainly capable of. They just didn't know how to say it. And that's very meaningful to me. So as I said, I was in TV news and I could have stayed there and I could have been standing at murder scenes and fires the rest of my life. Like anybody needs to see that. Like that's helping any neighborhood.
Right.
I would rather be taking these lessons and teaching people how to help themselves.
That's good.
That's what I'm hoping to do tonight. And that's what I do in my job. And it's very gratifying work. And I'm very grateful I get to do it.
Yeah, this is great information. Gethsemane, don't be shy. Raise your hands or type in the chat. All right. We got a question. Go ahead and
yes, ma'am.
There you go.
Okay. So with the cover letters,
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
With the cover letters, do you recommend changing each cover letter to the job that you're applying for because of different job categories?
Great question. Let me, so the one piece I didn't show you was the part below it. So first of all, the story you identify about yourself, that can be used over and over again. You don't need 100 different stories. You get one good one, you roll with it. Okay. So don't keep making that up. The part that changes gets back to what I said at the beginning. Let me show you the second half of this cover letters. One little part extra. All right. And it's going to look familiar to you now because we already talked about this. As I read about your company, I learned a lot about the software you developed. Example, playtime card game. Sorry, I'm getting in my own way here with the images. And how it can make a real impact on school-age children. So once again, what did I do? The story's the same, but what's different? The part about them, right? Because we can't just say, Acme Corporation is an amazing place. It'd be so incredible to work there. But if they say, well, have you been to our website? You know what we do? It's the most gotcha question in the interview. They're like, no, I glanced at it a little bit. I'll look more later. And you already lost it. So the story's the same, but what changes is right in here where you're gonna give an example of their work. So your story is unique and authentic, and what you're saying about them is unique and authentic. That's a great cover letter. And if your resume is full of numbers about what you've achieved, boy, it would take a real cold-hearted HR director to not even want to talk to you if you come with this. Nothing's guaranteed, but this was your best opportunity to cut through. So the story is the same. Part 4, that research piece is always different. Great question. I didn't talk about it, so I'm glad you brought it up. Anybody else have questions?
All right,
Yes,
Karen.
Karen, yes, ma'am.
Unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, yes, this was right on time because I'm in the process of redoing my resume and cover letter. And what I seen on, like, I went to Indeed. I don't know if that's a good source, but I got a lot of good information. And what they were speaking about, which was interesting, was about functional and chronological resumes. Which one? They were trying to see, they were talking about the different benefits. And I'm thinking more like functional would be a good way of highlighting your experiences, or a
Well, are you
combination.
asking, like, should you put your career like in chronological order?
Or would you focus, it sounds like you should focus more on a functional one.
Well, I
Because
think you should do both. I think it's
both,
important
yeah.
that the employer knows your career history.
Right,
And
right.
so they need to know where you were last and before that, and they need to know the years and the times, or it gets really kind of hard to figure you out. So I think you need that, but
Yeah.
within those jobs, it is completely functional, where you're saying, I was on a team of X number of people and we, helped this many people with this problem, or like just throwing your statistics in all the time. That's very functional to me. A lot of times resumes just have a lot of words that don't mean anything. And you're like, I don't even know what you did. I don't even know what this company does. I think it's important that you explain a little what the company did. And like, people throw these company names on resumes, assuming the reader knows what the company did or does. And they start getting into their biggest achievements and they're like, I don't even know what this company is. So it's important to be very functional and say, I worked at this place. This is what they did. Like, this was kind of their, in a few words, like, this is what they sold or did. And this was like how many people I helped, or how much money I was helped raise or spend or whatever. So I think it needs to be chronological order. And in those work experience sections, lean really hard on being really detailed focused, because that's what's going to make them really understand what you've achieved.
Well, I had started my resume as putting some of my highlight some of my skills in
Yes, correct. You're right. That goes
before
first.
the
Skills
job
first. Correct.
experiences.
Yes, skills first.
Right.
Exactly.
And then the chronological.
And let me make one point about skills, because a lot of times we write resume skills, we say things like, time management, leadership, hard worker. Those are more qualities than skills. And in the skills section, we want to see things like any software you've been trained on, like, Photoshop or Salesforce or Microsoft Excel. Those are the skills. Speaking Spanish, CPR certified. Those are the skills, because when they're going to put you into these big companies put you into a system called an applicant tracking system. And it's like a big database of the applications. And all they're going to do is say, keyword search, find me somebody that's bilingual. And it's going to sift everybody else out. So if you don't say bilingual on that resume, then they're not going to find you. They're not going to search for hard worker or like, dependable. Like, they're not looking for that. They're looking for, like, who knows how to use AutoCAD? Who knows how to do this thing? And that's where it starts. And then they get into your career history and they like you even more. So just again, I'm just trying to get everybody away from being generic. That's the tendency in the world, is to be very generic and to do what everybody else is doing, steal lines from the internet. Very, very boring. And a lot of, businessy words that nobody ever says to their friends. Just a lot of junk in there. And I want you to use your numbers, use your stories, use your skills. We want to be as human as possible. Thank you for your questions, Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate you. Anybody else? Yes, another question. Ms. Bullock.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So with that, going off of what Ms. Karen said with the resumes and things like that, I've been told that resumes need to be more suited to the job that you're applying for. But
Yes.
I'm also told that resumes need to look all the same way. Like, you go on Reddit and you look at the resume section and they all look the same. But some people are like, oh, well, this resume is better for, like, if you're doing like applying for like a photography job, or this one's for engineering. So it's kind of confusing on what your resume should look like. You said don't be generic, so that makes me think
Yeah.
to stay away from like the generic, like, and they all look the same with the like the name, and
Well,
the skills are at the bottom. You say skills, put the skills at the top. So
Yep.
I haven't ever heard that before.
Actually, let me tell you one other
Put the
thing.
skill at the bottom.
I'll tell you one other thing nobody talks about, and this is, you know, my personal opinion, but the education section, the very bottom. Because a lot of people go to school or have a degree from somewhere, but so that's not going to set you apart. What's setting you apart are your skills and your experience, not where you went to school or finished school or going to school. That needs to be there. They know you have some kind of credential, but what matters more are the skills you have and the experience you have. That's what you need to lead with when they're going to give you that 5 seconds, right? That's those same 5 seconds. And to your other point about, you know, resumes looking like the job you want, it just has to contain the information, you know, they're looking for. So that's why you got to read the application closely. And if they say it's critical that you know how to be a team player, then you want to have something on the resume about how you worked on a team of 6 and you helped manage 12 projects together. You know, see what I'm getting at? So you got to just make sure that you're hearing them. This is what they clearly care about. How can I back that up with numbers from my own life? And if you do that, then you're on point with what they're looking for. And it's not, it might look like if you held the resume up from 10 feet away, it's going to look like somebody else's, just in terms of like the structure. But when they actually get up and read it, they're like, oh, theirs is way better. Or like yours is way better than theirs. Even though it looked the same from a distance with like the same columns and header, but like you get up on it and you're like, okay, this person's legit because of the numbers.
That's good.
So don't worry that it looks the same. Forget that. Just focus on your own life.
That's
Good questions. I'll let Allie or TC, you know, shut me off whenever.
Are there other questions, Gethsemane? This is good, Danny. This is really good.
Well, I appreciate it.
All right, now we're gonna make the last call. Come on. I don't want to we're doing this for you, so we don't want to all right, there we go. LaShonda.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I just wanted to say that this information was very good today. I have been in the work field since I graduated from college, and I've probably only had 2 jobs. And so recently when I started to look, I looked at my resume and I was like, oh my, like, what do I put? Where do I start? And so listening to this today gave me a new outlook on it. And so this was very beneficial. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Good luck in your search. You know, you've been working for a bit, so you have a lot of great experience to lean on, a lot of stories, a lot of challenges, you know, and as I say, I'll say you take lemons, you make lemonade. Those stories, those things happen to us for a reason, right? And we have to leverage them. We have to bring them back up. I would also say with interviews, job interviews, they're going to ask you that question, right? Like, why would you be a good fit? Why do you want to work here? Why are you interested? You got to come back with a story. And like, well, let me tell you why I'm a good fit. Can I give you an example? Can I tell you a story? They'd be like, yes, please. They sat through all these boring interviews all day, people saying all this nonsense, and you're just spitting stories. And they're like, oh my gosh, that was the best interview I've ever had. Right? So it's, and I think I hope that you all appreciate like telling a great story. There's nothing better. You have everybody in the palm of your hand. You tell a great story from the pulpit. Everybody's listening. What happened next? How did it end? It's the same thing. And we forget that we're allowed to do that in these very formal job interview. Oh, I gotta say every word right. I gotta get it all right. I gotta have everything rehearsed. No, you don't. You just gotta tell somebody what you've done in your life. And then they're gonna know you. So good luck in your search, LaShonda.
LaShonda, I noticed the green. And I heard you say college graduate. Might you be a Spartan?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Behold the green and gold.
Because if you'd have said Hampton or ODU, I would have booed you, LaShonda. So yeah.
Oh, hey, don't boo, hey,
Yes.
in this crowd, don't boo Old Dominion with Miss Kim Curtis lurking.
Hey,
There she is. I knew she'd come in on that.
I saw
Oh, that's
Karen with
good.
her
Thank you,
hand
Rashonda.
raised too.
I love the Monarchs too.
That's right.
Hey, hey, I heard that.
I
That
knew
was
it.
awesome. Awesome. Loved it.
Are there other
okay.
questions?
Yes, I wanted to know how important is your social media platform, your sites? Like if you're a person on Facebook or Instagram. I heard that sometimes employees they like to check out your social media.
For sure. I
How,
mean, look,
how important is that?
this is this is stuff that they tell to middle school students, like not that they listen to it, to the advice, but they say, think about what you're putting out there, because once it's out there, you can't take it back. Even if you deleted it, somebody could have screenshotted it. So you got to be so careful with what you share on social media. That's just, day in, day out, just be thinking about it. Even if you wrote it 10 years ago, it's still part of your past and somebody might find it. So just be mindful of it. I think LinkedIn is the most important place to be. I don't think employers are always digging around on Facebook a lot, but they are going to try and find you on LinkedIn. And it's helpful to have a profile there, to have a picture there, just some kind of presence so they can look you up. They're going to try and do that first. If they're really serious about you, they're going to try and see if you're there. If you're not there, it's not the end of the world, but I would say that's the most important. You don't need to get on a platform like Instagram or Twitter to get a job. I'm saying if you're on those, just be careful, but LinkedIn would be helpful at this point. It's so common today that everybody is looking for people there. So if you don't have an account, I recommend that you create one and just put a picture, a little bio, some of your resume bullet points can go there. You can fill it out, not too much time. And at least you have a presence there. That would be probably your best approach right now is to focus on that site.